Hello, Amit. Welcome to DC Conversations. Your growth in financial year 25 has been very impressive, the first thing. So, you just released the figures. So, tell us, how did that happen? What drove your impressive growth?
So, Rashmi, obviously, we've been in the business since the last 10 years, right? So clearly, the business has evolved. And if you overall look at the business, I think from our standpoint, we kind of transformed the whole narrative post-COVID, right? I mean, the industry got significant tailwinds, and I think we were able to, kind of take that tailwind and work it to our own advantage, right? So in 2020, March 2020, when COVID hit, we were essentially about 50 odd locations, right? 50 centers. And that today, we have about 210 that are live. And we have, in addition, close to about another, 40 odd centers that are, on the way. So we kind of added seat capacity significantly over the last few years. So this past FY25, we added about 40,000 seats, new seats. That was on a back of 95,000 that we ended in FY24. So the seat capacity addition obviously helped in the growth numbers because that obviously drives a majority part of the business. We also launched a couple of different areas, which is our elite centers, which works really well for multinational and GCC type clients. And that product did really well, positioned us very well for managed office, which has grown significantly as part of our business portfolio. So that's the second part of it. We also do what we call is design and build services. That is a business that we started about 3 years ago. Today, almost contributes 25% of the revenue comes from that business. We built strength in that business that allowed us to grow that piece almost by 36% year on year. And, we also provide what we call as allied services, essentially, which is food and beverage, IT services, mobility products, and so on. And those also saw some, significant growth. And from all of these elements put together, obviously, it saw revenue growth. And obviously, because some of these services are pure services and you don't need to invest any capex, the outcomes in terms of both EBITDA, PAT, as well as the return on capital employed were highly, in terms of numbers, we got significant improvements in those as well.
What has changed for Office from the time it started? Like, how did the goals change and what are the value additions you did?
Rashmi, the industry was fairly, I would say, nascent, right? I mean, 10 years ago, very few players operated. Today, some 400 plus players operate. But the reality for us was that when we started the business, I think we were trying to solve for a couple of different things, right? On the demand side, what we were solving for was accessibility. And the idea was that we should have a office center within 5 to 10 minute driving radius across 7 metros. I'm glad to report that we've already achieved that goal. A second was flexibility. People should make a choice between one seat or 100 seats, one day or 5 years, their choice. And then the final piece was ease of use, right? People should, below, let's say, 20, 25 seats, should be able to use a plug and play kind of an option. They should be able to book it on the app and use it on a plug and play option. So I think that was on the demand side. I think the main differentiator and a big differentiator for us is the managed aggregation model. And that managed aggregation model on the supply side differentiates us completely from, I would say, all others across the globe. Because in that model, what you're trying to do is essentially you're trying to reduce your risk in terms of asset liability mismatch, right? Typically, you go to a landlord and ask them to invest the new capital, and hence you become asset light. And then the second piece is that there's no fixed rent. There's a minimum guarantee after 5 to 13 months, and that's typically 50% of the market rental. And hence you become the asset liability mismatch. The risk becomes shared between us and our landlord partner. So I think that model at this scale, I don't think has been done anywhere globally. Today, out of the 210 odd centers that are live, almost about 67% of those centers, almost 150 odd centers, are in this model. And that ensures that we are a risk averse business as we go forward. And hence our seat capacity addition, almost 70% from the last year, has been in this model. So I think that's one big differentiator. Second, I think for us, when we started the evolution, we were targeted more towards startups and mid corporates, right? It's only post COVID that the enterprises came in a big way, and hence our what was purely our co-working business, we evolved and added managed office as well to that portfolio. So today, 70% of the overall co-working revenue comes from the co-working centers, and 30% comes from managed office. Third piece for us, I think what we've evolved is, we've added multiple services to the offering. And I think that's a big differentiator that is happening this year for us. Obviously, we've built it over the last couple of years. Is that we currently do co-working, we do managed office, we do design and build services. We also do today, as I mentioned, IT under our office tech labs. We also provide the transportation solutions under our partnership with Ecos and Ecos Mobility and us. And we also deliver, the various food and beverage cafeteria services now independently. That's a business we have also ventured on. So for us, all of these services make us a platform. Everything you need as a commercial workplace office goer, you are able to get under one umbrella. And I think it's like going to a bank, right? You have all your financial needs taken care of, from a saving loan to a credit card to a home loan, right? So it's the same logic, it's the same decision maker who's taking a decision on all of these elements. And now, obviously, we're expanding this further by backward integration by starting our furniture unit as well. So I think from that standpoint, all these services have evolved over the last 10 years. But today, we truly believe we are the only probably platform that can deliver all of these services under one umbrella.
So, how do you plan to optimize capacity and drive occupancy in the first half of FY26?
So, Rashmi, obviously, we added 90 on the back of 95,000 seats in FY24, we added 40,000 seats. So, if you look at it, almost 50% of the capacity was new capacity. And typically, if you look at our numbers today, 73% was the blended occupancy today, and 84% for centers which are 12 months or more. So, it typically takes us anywhere between 6 to 12 months to get a center to about 85% occupancy, which is our ideal state. And if you look at our, as the H1 of FY26 goes forward, the number of new centers that were added, right, will obviously as a percentage of the overall portfolio, and we'll continue to add more centers and seats this year as well, almost the same number, about 40,000 odd seats. So if you really look at it, the number of mature centers will be a larger pie. And those mature centers get to 85 odd percent average occupancy. And hence, obviously, in any case, with that trend happening, we will continue to see improvement in our occupancy, which ultimately leads to improvement in our contribution margin, which leads to improvement in EBITDA impact and so on. So I think that's one part of it. Second, obviously, we are seeing very strong demand for GCCs, and we launched the Elite product last year, and today we have 3 Elite centers that are live. We have plans for another 4 or 5 of these centers to go forward. I think so that clearly will impact our managed office as well as these servicing these global capability centers. Also, I mentioned all the different services that we have added in terms of platform, office tech labs, the cafeteria services, design and build. All of these services are margin accretive, right? I mean, so clearly, as we continue to grow these services, I think our margin improvement and as well as our numbers will start to improve. But FY26 and on all, from our standpoint, we look at it as a build year. So we are projecting about 30% growth, 40,000 additional seats. And we want to make sure that all of these services, which we have started in the last year or so, become standalone businesses on their own. And I think that's the journey for FY26. Hence, the margin per se will not improve much beyond what we achieved in FY25. But this is going to be the year where we are going to really build all of these pieces out so that they can all be standalone businesses on their own.
So, how does your design and build approach help your clients?
Rashmi, if you look at it, it's all kind of ties together, right? If you look at the co-working business, clients come to us for anywhere between, let's say, 1 seat to, let's say, 200, 250 odd seats, right? Our typical co-working center is roughly about 30,000 square feet. That is about roughly 500 to 600 odd seats, in any given center. And to that end, obviously, when a client comes to us and if they move into are ready to move inventory, which is typically between 1 to 10 seater cabins, obviously for the client, design and build becomes important because they're taking a call to come to a space where they're going to be in a shared ecosystem, right? So clearly, how the space appears, what's the design quality, what's the aesthetic quality, what is the kind of materials that are used, what is the kind of wellness focus that's there, what is the amenities that are available. All of this goes into the decision making of the client. And I think if you look at it, and we all respond well to well designed spaces, and I think from that standpoint, that differentiates the the quality of the I mean, the quality of the infrastructure is a main decision maker for most people when they're taking a call on any kind of space that they're taking. So I think design plays an important role. And then obviously from a build standpoint, there are two things. There's one is quality. I can, if I do it myself, I can control the quality. And the second is speed, right? I mean, most of the clients, when they come to us for flexibility, right? And when your flexibility is in the core of your DNA, you have to respond fast, right? Because people ultimately continue to wait for a certain time, right? And then they take that call and then they all want it yesterday. So speed and quality plays a huge role. Design
Yeah.
and build supports that. Also, for many of our customers which want managed office, right? I mean, the core difference is that I'm renting the space. I am then basically doing the design per their specifications and then building it out for them. There also, I think the design quality makes a huge difference. So, I mean, that's a if you look at our hospitality industry, there are various categories that are there, right? So we are able to deliver. Obviously, you have a hotel that retails a room that retails for 5,000 rupees, and something that retails for 50,000 rupees. And usually, is the quality of the infrastructure that drives that, right? So from similar standpoint, our flagship product, delivers a product which is at about 8,000 rupees, and then we have gold, which is about 10,000, and then we have elite, which is 12 to 14,000. So clearly, the ability for us to have that differentiation across these categories and controlling the complete supply chain of design build becomes important, right? For managed office, especially, clients are looking for their own specifications or their own design. But at the same time, they want somebody who can deliver a great quality of design at a very affordable price and at a speed that is kind of faster than everybody else. So I think that piece helps all of our pieces. And then ultimately, about 5% of the portfolio of 3,000 plus companies that sit with us is in co-working. Rest of 95% is essentially their own conventional space, and design build really works well for us to be able to deliver in the conventional space, right? So I think while we wish that everybody should move to co-working, but that's not going to be the case, right? So today we control about 20% of the overall leasing market. So that's the share that co-working has today. I mean, as an industry. But I think that's kind of, in our view, I think it's going to range between that over the next few years. So then that leaves another 80% opportunity in design and build for us to be able to service those customers. So clearly, I think that's the reason that we feel that all of this supports the overall business as we go forward.
So, talking about various categories, could you give me a breakup on, which category is most sought after and in which city?
So, Rashmi, if we today look at the portfolio, about 15% of our portfolio is in gold and elite.
Mm.
Rest of the 85% is in our flagship product. So obviously the flagship product is the majority of the revenue, but obviously gold and elite deliver higher revenue numbers. So technically they could be a bit higher, around 20-22% of the overall revenue, right? As we go forward, we will keep the mix almost the same in that ratio, because we feel that at the flagship level where we have the 85% of our office product, I think that's where a large portion of India's demand exists, right? I mean, it's like, thinking about a Toyota Corolla versus a Mercedes E-Class, right? So I think the demand at the high level, the premium most level, I think is limited. And hence we believe that this kind of a ratio would work, continue to work for us as we go forward.
Okay. So, what benefits does the managed aggregation business model bring to office growth and profitability?
Kashmi, I think one, as I mentioned earlier, clearly if you look at the whole, industry, the globally the industry failed because of the asset liability mismatch, right? You are basically taking something for long term, and because of the flexibility that you offer as part of your business model, you are essentially able to give that to the customer, right? And that's the primary reason, right? Now, all of it is great when the demand is strong, which has been the case for the last 4 5 years in India. But I think with the moment it kind of wobbles a little, you are left with all the liabilities on your books, right? And obviously the customers are in the short term because they need flexibility and they exit. Now, in that scenario, for one to be able to be survive, is you need to have the landlord as your partner, right? And I think that's what we have kind of done with our managed aggregation model, where landlord becomes our partner. Essentially, we ask the landlord to put in 80 90% of the capital from their side, and our obviously partnership helps develop the center. Obviously, we design and build it. We help bring operate the center. We help bring demand to the center, and hence we are able to generate returns for our landlord partners, right? So typically the way the model works is essentially 80 90% are coming from the landlord in terms of capital. We invest about 20% from our side. When the center gets to a certain level of occupancy, beyond let's say 5 to 13 months, where we have a minimum guarantee fee period, after that either we give the minimum guarantee or we give a profit share, typically in a 70/30 ratio. And I think that way obviously landlords are able to create a larger alpha, because typically they would have given it on pure rent. Now once you're providing the fitted out space, once you're providing operational infrastructure, once you're providing the complete end solution to the client as a plug and play option, then obviously the alpha will be higher than the straight rental. And hence, when you divide the 70/30 ratio, our landlord partners end up making a bit higher return than a pure rental. Now, this has been proven. We have done this across, as I said, 150 odd locations across India, has grown healthy for us at 70% last year. Today, 67% of the portfolio is in managed aggregation. We have done this across 18 cities in India, almost 58 micro markets that we have established through this and our straight lease centers. So we feel that at this scale we are able to provide something which is unique in the global world, in terms of this kind of a model, and hence because of this model, our return on capital employed continues to remain high in the 70% plus range.
So do you have any strategic capacity expansion plans for second half of FY 26?
Rashmi, our expansion plans obviously continue to evolve, but as I said, idea is that we will add about 40,000 seats this year.
Yeah.
We are looking to add, we added Guwahati and Lucknow over the last couple of years. We will add Vijayawada this year as a new city. We will continue to expand our portfolio in tier one locations, which is 85% of our portfolio today. All the cities for us are doing extremely well. Bangalore, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Pune, NCR, Chennai, Kolkata, all the top tier one cities are doing really, really well. We obviously are strategically looking at the micro markets where there is demand, micro markets where we don't have a presence. So we'll continue to explore those as we continue to expand our capacity. Tier 2 is interesting for us. I mean, all the cities that we are present in, about 9 odd cities today, and as I said, Vijayawada will expand this year. We will continue to look at the cities where we feel that there is expansion opportunities. For us, it's important that we have every city should have at least 4 to 6 centers, because obviously we establish an operations team, we establish a sales team, and all of this has to kind of come together for us to have enough real estate portfolio for us to have these larger teams, because we want to make sure that the experience that our customers get is consistent across the India. And to do that, you have to establish the right kind of processes, right kind of technology, right kind of people have to be hired to deliver on that promise. So I think from that standpoint, both expansions will happen. And as I said, our portfolio 85% will be in flagship, 15 will be in gold and elite, and that's the kind of the ratio that we'll continue to establish as we go forward. As I also mentioned earlier, I think we will continue to expand our businesses, all of the verticals that we have started in cafeteria management, be it our design build, be it our mobility solutions, be it our office tech labs. All of these businesses we want to scale up in FY 26 as we go forward.
Talking about tier one and tier two cities, what is the trend like in terms of demand and growth in tier two cities?
Rashmi, every tier two city behaves a bit differently, right? So I think if I was to pick up an example of Indore, um, 3 4 years ago there was 45% vacancy in the market, right? Today there's not a single square inch left. So I think tier 2 cities have seen a tremendous amount of growth post COVID, because people realize that being closer to home sometimes makes more sense. We also companies realize that you could work from anywhere, right? So you didn't have to be in a Bangalore or Hyderabad to be working for specific companies. And obviously the cost of living is lower. And also what was a game changer was that over the last few years, these cities have established great infrastructure, both in terms of medical, be it in terms of road infrastructure, be it in terms of connectivity, internet, bandwidth, etc., all of that, and entertainment, right? I mean, so when a large portion of these companies have gone back, right, the large ITS companies, opportunity gets created, right? Otherwise, always the challenge was, I will graduate and what will I do in that tier two city? Now, in a city like Indore, that all of those check boxes are very well placed, and connectivity, even rail and air, etc., is well, right? You see the same thing in Nagpur. I mean, the city has grown tremendously because the government invested in airport upgradation. They invested in Mihan, which is the kind of the industrial hub. They opened more hospitality solutions, etc., and all of that put together obviously creates a better infrastructure. You look at the same thing for a city like Bhubaneswar, where government went ahead and even created buildings to attract occupiers. Like we currently have a campus of almost 2 lakh square feet. One part is occupied by Accenture, one part is occupied by Cognizant, and these are both companies where the government provided the infrastructure for them to be able to come into the city and establish themselves. So I think my view on this is that people are moving into tier two cities because of the talent available, and obviously that talent has in some ways is graduating, in some ways is coming back from Bangalore and Hyderabad. Very very bullish on tier two cities. The only roadblock right now seems to be the compliant supply. In certain cities like Coimbatore, for example, there's no supply available. Obviously, the demand is huge. I mean, even as one single operator, we would have 2 to 3,000 seat demand currently running for Coimbatore, but there's no infrastructure that's available, compliant infrastructure for us to be able to expand there. So I think there will be challenges, but I think people will see tier twos. Our India's 4 trillion to $10 trillion economies cannot be written on back of just 7 cities. It has to be written on, I would say, about top 20 cities of many which will be tier two, and that expansion is dependent on the government incentives, the developers committing to capital in terms of infrastructure, government committing to capital in terms of developing the overall infrastructure of the city. And if you put all of these things together, there's no reason that tier two cities will do extremely well. And we obviously been pioneers in it. We opened our first center in Chandigarh in 2018, and since then I've gone to 9 and now probably 10 odd cities, tier two cities.
Great. Thank you so much, Amit. Thank you for talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmi. Okay,
Have a good
take
day.
care.
Yeah, thanks.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.